What's going on, guys, and welcome to another comparison video. This is one I've been waiting to film for a very long time. We are going to compare my 1991 Acura NSX, which I've modified very recently with an OEM Plus approach, against a 2022 Porsche 718 Cayman GTS with a 4-liter naturally aspirated flat 6 engine and a manual transmission. For me, this is going to be the true test of whether or not I modified this NSX properly. Obviously, the NSX is 31 years older than the Cayman, but on paper there's so many similarities between the two cars. Both have naturally aspirated mid-mounted 6-cylinder engines that rev out to 8,000 RPM, manual transmission, rear-wheel drive with a limited slip differential. They both weigh right around 3,000 pounds. In the case of the Cayman GTS, it's around 3,100. This one's around 3,000. They're both known for their excellent steering feel. If I'm being honest, the real goal with this car is to make it feel as close as possible to a Porsche GTS driving experience. It means it's a car that can be driven daily with reasonable comfort, good suspension compliance, while at the same time being super fun to drive on a back road and the occasional track day. So what are those mods? I have the Sakebomb Ohlins DFV coilovers, Grand Touring spec with a mild 8 kilogram front, 6 kilogram rear spring rate, and I have their AP Racing front big brake kit and the Sakebomb custom rear big brake kit, which involves just a relocated stock caliper with a much bigger rotor. So let's see how the NSX drives. Hopefully I haven't ruined the car. 3-liter V6 naturally aspirated, one of the first engines with VTEC, variable valve timing on the intake and exhaust cams, 8,000 RPM redline, 270 horsepower, 210 pound-feet. Turn the audio up, boys. Need I say more? I feel like I can just let the car do the talking. Ooh, that's a nice firm brake pedal we have now. AP Racing, there is no substitute. One of the best manual transmissions in the world. Now, unfortunately, I haven't done the JDM 5-speed gear set with a Type R final drive that I've been harping on and on about in the last couple of NSX videos. So the second gear in this car does go to 81 miles an hour. I've also got a Pride V2 RFL really effing loud exhaust. It's a catback with no mufflers, so all you're hearing is just pure exhaust note. I got this exhaust back when I was much younger. Now that I'm a little bit older and I like to think a little bit more mature, I would like to swap this exhaust out at some point with something more mild. I actually really liked the Titec exhaust on Jimmy's red NSX that I reviewed recently. But back to my car. First time driving it hard since the suspension and brakes were upgraded, and I have to say, what a big difference those parts have made. This car feels so much more planted in the corners now. Look at that. Way less body roll, better control. The thing is no longer a floaty, soggy mess. We still have this delicious manual steering rack that's just brimming with feedback. It does have a slow ratio and it is quite heavy, so you do have to manhandle it through the tighter corners. But that's part of the charm of the NSX. It's something that you simply can't experience with modern cars. Is it the quickest way to steer a car through the hairpins? Absolutely not. But is it the most fun way? It might just be. Because you feel so much about what the front end is doing. You feel connected to the road, even if ultimately you're not going that fast. And that's the appeal of these older JDM cars, for me at least. But that sounds like a foregone conclusion. We still have to hop into that Cayman GTS 4.0 and see if it really is in some ways a spiritual successor to the NSX. Yes, look at the way it handled that crest back there. There have been a lot of cars with OEM suspension that haven't been able to handle that crest with so much compliance and confidence. A single compression and rebound stroke and the car is settled. That's what I like to see. Now before we bring it back, I think you guys deserve one more straight line pull. There's 8,000 RPM. The car feels pretty stable at high speed for a 33-year-old car with essentially no aero. I mean, it does have some aero, but this car doesn't produce any net downforce, and yet somehow it manages to feel quite stable at high speed. All right, that's enough of that. Let's hop into the Cayman GTS 4.0 and see how it stacks up against my NSX. All right, we're now in the Porsche 718 Cayman GTS 4.0 manual. This is a car whose existence I'm just simply thankful for. After the 718 generation of Cayman and Boxster moved to the turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, a lot of people, including myself, cried foul. Gone was the amazing sounding, high revving flat 6 NA engines of old. And here came along this silly little 4-cylinder that just did not sound proper for a sports car. That said, I did have the opportunity to drive a 718 GTS with the 2.5-liter 4-cylinder, and the engine was a lot better than I expected, but still nowhere near what a NA flat 6 feels like. So when this 4-liter version was announced as the replacement for that car, I knew I had to get behind the wheel someday, and that day is here. Its flat 6 engine makes 394 horsepower and around 330 pound-feet of torque. Being a GTS model, it does come with the PASM adaptive sport suspension, unique wheels wrapped in Pirelli P0 tires, a mechanical rear limited slip differential, Porsche sports exhaust, all as standard. This car has been optioned out to just under $92,000, and the owner Sherman told me that he wanted a very mild spec, very few option boxes ticked. It's got the Race Tex seats, which is essentially Porsche's name for their Alcantara. Very high quality and classy interior. We have this brushed aluminum for the cup holders, more Alcantara on the doors, a metal and leather shift knob. Overall, just a very nice cabin to be in. Visibility still doesn't hold a candle to that amazing NSX F-16 fighter jet cockpit. This doesn't give you that same amazing view of the road just ahead. The steering wheel does have height adjustment as well as telescoping. We do have this annoying electronic e-brake, which I'm not a fan of. But all that aside, we're here to find out how this car drives. So let's go and do just that. Electric power steering versus manual steering. Let's see how they compare. Wow, that induction sound. That is almost overwhelmingly loud from inside the car. It has an absolute howl. But that's the best way to describe this engine sound. It's an induction howl. What a sound. Oh my goodness, this car is so good. I didn't expect anything less from a Porsche GTS product. Even then, I'm still surprised by just how good this car feels. My God. Oh. The controls are just so perfect for a modern car, that is. The steering doesn't have a ton of feedback, but it's perfectly weighted. The shifter feels excellent. It's nice and positive going into each gate. The clutch has great feedback. I love Porsche clutches, but let me shut up and let the car do the talking. Listen to this induction note. Wow. Now this second gear also goes to like 80 plus miles an hour, but with 394 horsepower, this car can justify that long gearing, whereas my NSX with its 125 fewer horses, it does feel pretty anemic coming out of hairpins in second. Not the case here. This car loves to rotate on throttle. Woo! suspension, even in the softer mode, is a little bit busy over bigger bumps. So you have to be mindful of that on a canyon road. Woo, like right there. Oh yes, super neutral balance. A little bit of understeer with these P0 tires, but not much. Oh yes, oh yes. What a fantastic car. So confidence inspiring, and yet it's so adjustable on throttle. You turn it in, pitch it into a corner, give it a boot full of gas, and the rear end will step out just a little bit. It's not like a BRZ or GR86 that just wants to hang its ass out for like 3 seconds at a time. This car wants to hook up, but that doesn't mean you can't get little bits of oversteer. That's not something I can really do in my NSX on this road because, well, a few reasons. The steering is so heavy that I simply don't trust that I'll be able to catch it in time. And second of all, the second gear is so long and the car doesn't have enough power to really break the rear end loose in some of these tighter corners. On a racetrack, that's a different story, and something I'll find out very soon when I track the car this year. But on a canyon road, this GTS 4.0 is a lot more playful. You would think the limits would be incredibly high, but that's not really the case. Brake pedal feel is excellent, really nice and firm. Handles that crest pretty well. I am in love with the Cayman GTS 4-liter. Ultimate balance. That is how I can describe the feeling of this car. It's different than something like a GT4 because that car just has so much mechanical grip that it's simply not that playful on a canyon road. Oh yes, oh yes. Why would you need any more than this 4-liter engine? That's my question now. I need to get behind the wheel of a 718 GT4, perhaps, to get the answer to that question. But from where I'm sitting right now, this is one of the great engines of modern times. No, it doesn't rev to a mind-boggling 9,000 RPM like a GT3, but still, it fits the character of this car so well. This car doesn't scream motorsport or racing. Screams balance, perfect balance. So how would I compare it to my NSX? Well, after driving this car from a driving dynamics at the limit perspective, this is the far more capable and I would say more enjoyable car. Where the NSX still shines though is driving at 70%, where you're not necessarily exploring the grip limits of the car, but rather enjoying the engine sound, rowing it through the gears with that amazing gearbox, and feeling everything through your fingertips while having a great view of the road around you. That's where the NSX experience still shines 33 years later. The GTS 4.0 doesn't give you that same level of enjoyment at 70%. The steering is lifeless by comparison. The shifter feel, while excellent, doesn't have the same heft and mechanical snick that the NSX shifter provides. And overall, the view of the road around you isn't quite as special given modern safety regulations. But when you drive this car hard, it really does blow the NSX out of the water. I'll be the first to admit that. And the way I've modified my NSX definitely does get it a couple of steps closer to this Porsche GTS ethos, but it's not quite there. And I honestly think, and I'll say this for like the 10th time, the JDM short gears would really transform my NSX into a more Porsche GTS-like experience. That being said, let me know what you think about this comparison, original NSX versus modern Cayman GTS 4.0. Which one would you have if all else was equal? A low mileage NSX for around 90 grand or an essentially brand new GTS 4.0 for around the same price. A big thank you to Sherman, the owner of this GTS, for letting me compare it to my NSX. Thank you all for watching. Subscribe if you have not already, and I'll see you all in the next one.